Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of Osoyoos Town Council, June the 21st at 8:40 p.m. A little bit late tonight, just following our annual general meeting. So, first item of business would be looking at the adoption of some minutes from June 7th, 2000, Committee of the Whole from June 7th, regular open from June the 7th, and public hearing minutes from June the 7th, 2010. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Ryan, any discussion on those minutes? Or we got them right this time? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Looking at introduction of late items, and there is one there. It's a zoning amendment bylaw 1085.82, Lions Park Marina, site-specific zoning. This is actually going to refer to a public hearing that will be coming up, and that appears as, what item is that going to appear? Bylaws 4. Okay, thank you. Now, there is some business arising.
Have a resolution. Add that to the.
Oh, okay, yes. Councillor Chadsey, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor, opposed, carried, as bylaw 4. Now, there is some business arising from some in-camera minutes, and this was minutes that were brought forward to become into the public domain. And the first one would be, so I'll need a motion on these. The first one would be a council receipt into public meeting from the closed meeting of October the 2nd, 2006. And this was the comfort letter dealing with Osoyoos shoreline development and the town of Osoyoos. This underlines the agreement between those two corporations as they were looking at development of parks and some of the dock issues that arose. So could I have that motion, please? Councillor
Yes.
Ryan?
I so move that we put into the public domain the motion from the in-camera meeting 89/06, and also the letter that it refers to.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Rhodes. Discussion on that, please. Yes, Councillor
Yes,
Ryan.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yes, I think this is really important, especially with the previous public hearing and then the information session we had on the proposed marina at Lions Park, to make sure that people know what has in fact occasioned this, and the agreement, the commitment that the town has made to Watermark to assist them in finding a place for them to launch and to moor their boats.
Great. Thank you. Any further discussion? I think it's, well, it's obviously very timely, but it's good to have it out there. And I thought it was public information when we had the hearing, and then I found out that it wasn't. So this is great to move this all forward. So any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That is in the public domain. And the second item, council had advertised, and they were looking for volunteer members to join up and help us, and it was the Lake Recreational and Commercial Use Task Force. And so we advertised in a couple of issues of the paper, looking for volunteers to come up and help us with the water zoning issue that we sort of broached about 2 months ago, and it may move into the marina use that we're talking about now, and we need some help from the public. So we got the letters, and today at an in-camera meeting, those members were chosen, and they will be receiving official letters, and also the people that did apply and were not chosen will be receiving official letters thanking them for their interest in the town. So at this point, I'm going to ask for the motion to bring it forward, and then I'll say, and I'm going to read out the names tonight. So, Councillor Chadsey, Councillor Rhodes, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay, so at the meeting today, the people that were selected, and this was community-wide stakeholders, and we had sectorial stakeholders from business and from different areas, and of course there was some staff and other folks on there. So we're looking at a committee, it looks like, of 12. And I'll start with the community-wide stakeholders, Sue McCordhoff, Roger Horton, Janice St. Louis, Jürgen Reinhardt's. Jürgen's here tonight. Thanks. Congratulations, Jürgen, and thanks for applying. In the sectoral stakeholders, Ralph Otto, Drew Casa, Vincent Burke, and Rob Roche. And from the final group would be the chair, which is Councillor Cronmiller, and Councillor Rhodes is the alternate. Mark Pendergraft from Area A, Alan Cunningham from Planning and Development, and Steve Shannon, also from Planning and Development, who had a large part of writing our docks bylaws, and he's written a lot of our water-oriented bylaws. So those are the 12 people that will be on that task force and taking that forward. The next item of business is under delegations, and we have Hilma LaBelle from the Southern Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services. And they'd done a lot here with diversity and some protocol, and they've done some surveys. And when I heard some of the results, I'd actually asked Hilma to come forward because she has some pretty neat news and some pretty neat things to say about our town. Hilma, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wells and Council. The journey of the documents that I sent to you a couple of weeks ago, we hand-delivered. That journey started actually about 3 years ago. And when I became executive director of the society, one of the things I really wanted to do was broaden the scope of the things that we did as a multicultural society. And we really looked at an initiative that was started back in June 2008. Premier Gordon Campbell launched Welcome BC. And it was an initiative to sort of try and respond to what we knew were going to be huge labour market shortages over the next 10 to 15 years. And there's a number of reasons for that. The baby boomers are retiring. We only had 2 children instead of 3-point-something. People have left the province. The number of immigrants actually coming into the province is decreasing slightly. And so we needed to look at how we could fill some of those gaps that we know are going to occur, especially in the tourism industry, in hospitality, and in the skills, and as Stuart mentioned earlier, interior health. So it was a real initiative for us to take some impetus and take some leadership role in looking at the South Okanagan-Similkameen and how welcoming were we, and how were people looking at us through that lens of trying to find housing and employment and settle in our communities. So as I say, the journey started about 3 years ago with a very tiny grant. We formed a diversity promotion network, a DPN, and we started off with an initiative called Critical Incident Response Mechanism. And this was through the then Attorney General's Ministry, and that was designed to look at incidents of racism and hate, and look at communities individually and see who would like to form committees or join together, and look at the notion of how did that then connect to being welcoming and inclusive. So that initiative actually culminated in November, when we had over 100 people from the South Okanagan-Similkameen, and Councillor Ryan was there, I know, to a dialogue that was actually hosted at the Incaneep Centre on the Osoyoos Indian Band. And Chief Clarence Louis was our guest host and keynote speaker, along with Minister Ben Stewart, whose ministry funded the project. And it was just a wonderful day. We had numerous guest speakers. We had a traditional welcoming from the Osoyoos Indian Band. We had immigrants who told their stories, what it was like to have come from another country and settled in the South Okanagan-Similkameen, and a lovely lady from Osoyoos, whose name has just gone right out of my head, but has a boutique down on Main Street.
Sonia.
Sonia.
Yeah.
was a wonderful speaker and spoke to how welcome and warm she had felt in the town of Osoyoos when she first came here. So that sort of matured, and finally by December last year, we were actually again awarded more funding to broaden the scope and go into a survey on generally asking the question, are we welcoming? What does it mean to be welcoming and inclusive in the South Okanagan Similkameen? So my dear friend and colleague Tina Head, who had worked with me when we both worked for the RCMP in Penticton, came out of semi-retirement and agreed to head up that survey for me. And I have to say that she did an absolutely fabulous job. Along with her, we had an intern from France, but he was a master's student at the University de Quebec at Montreal, and he is Julien Jérémy, and he actually took this as his master's thesis. So that was also really interesting for us. So Julien and Tina trekked around the South Okanagan Similkameen in the snow and the wind and the rain, and gathered over 40 interviews, and again came to the town of Osoyoos. I believe may have met with yourself, Mayor Wells, and again discovered that the warmest welcome was in Osoyoos. Some of the things they needed to find out was where could they go? Who would give them this information? Who were those ideal key informants to inform the study? And of course, everybody mentioned your Home Hardware. And so, of course, off they went to Home Hardware. And, how forward thinking. It was discovered that they have all their staff take diversity training as part of their orientation. They actually employ, I believe, members of a refugee family that came to the Okanagan. So there were some wonderful, wonderful stories that came out of Osoyoos, and they're all documented in this particular study here. The other thing they found is that they went to the visitor center and the Chamber of Commerce, and every time they went and asked somebody, can you help me with this or can you help me with that, people just wanted to help. And they then reported back to me and to Mayor Wells when we dropped off the materials that Osoyoos was actually one of the most welcoming communities to them as researchers, because of course everybody's busy, and especially businesses, tourism, hospitality, and it was a fairly in-depth study. One of the things that we found is that some of the requirements for the funding were massive in terms of response and evaluation documents, but we're happy to say that most people that we approached actually took the time, agreed to be interviewed, and participated in at least the survey and the asset mapping part of that study. So that's given us, ideas for the future. Another lovely new initiative that we've just been doing is with the school district here, and we've just completed our first year in Osoyoos Elementary School, working with the immigrant children there and their families. And we have what we call a settlement worker in school, or a Swiss worker. Amandeep Dalawal is from Oliver. She grew up here in the South Okanagan, and she's done a fabulous job this year. And the school district, we have some subcontracted with them, and the report back from them again is just wonderful on how warm and welcoming the response she got when she went to Osoyoos Elementary School. So a big thank you from my heart to the town of Osoyoos, because without you people and without the people that responded, of course, we wouldn't have had the study. And the study does reflect that, overall, the South Okanagan Similkameen is a very warm and welcoming place. There are some challenges, and those are the next steps, because we're now going to do a public education initiative funded through other means, and we're hoping to roll that out more towards the fall, where we'll start educating people around some of the results that we found in here and some other initiatives that we've actually got funding from the University of BC at Okanagan. And Wolf Debner, who used to be a reporter for The Western, is actually researching that for us now with a grant through MyTax, which is the UBC research branch. So more stuff to come. So I hope you'll just be as warm and welcoming to Wolf as you were to Tina and Julien. And once again, to the town of Osoyoos, Mayor and Council, thank you ever so much. And I do have some buttons for you that say, welcome to the Okanagan. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll just ask council if there's any questions. You know, in Osoyoos, traditionally, you know, that's our backbone. Has been immigration. Everyone came, and they came in their little sectoral waves, you know, and they all came from, you know, the Hungarians and the early Germans, and you know, the Portuguese was a big one, and they've all come, and I think maybe that's the background for this diversity that seems to thrive here.
Yeah.
Again, congratulations to the town of the people of the town of Osoyoos, because it's all about people. This
It
one.
is.
So.
It absolutely. We're in the people business. And I think, like you say, it's well reflected and well noted that when you are an immigrant, and I'm an immigrant, and I speak the language, how that reflects in the work that we do. And we do employ, almost all my staff is of an immigrant background, and we've just employed a new lady for the summer who speaks Portuguese. And she's already been talking to the Portuguese soccer club down here. So again, I think you just have that empathy. And I know Margaret and I met at the citizenship ceremony not too long ago, and we shared a Kleenex, if I remember, because it is such a wonderful moment where people choose to become Canadians. And I've been to many, many of those ceremonies now, but I still have that Kleenex up my sleeve every time. Yeah, thank you ever.
Do we have any questions of Hilma? No? Well, thank you very much then, and yeah, we'll take our pins.
Thank you.
Sure,
Yes,
wonderful.
Yes.
Or maybe the town front counter. Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, moving into the further on the agenda, into water matters, the water accounts in the amount of $24,008.23. Pay some bills here. Councilor Laranjo, Councilor Morera. Discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Get those paid. The checks are in the mail, folks. Next item of business is correspondence. This is the monthly report from the Okanagan Basin Water Board regarding the June 3rd meeting. Motion to receive, please. Councillor Cronmiller, Councillor Ryan. Any discussion on that report? Hearing none. Looks like we're not in the drought business. Sorry, that was sort of a false start. Hearing none. All in favor of receiving that? Opposed? Thank you. I guess we're not in the drought worrying business anymore with the amount of rain we've been having this year. So we'll keep working on getting our bylaws in place for the year that it does come. I don't think this is the time to let down our guard, so to speak. Into the bylaws portion of the meeting, the first one is zoning amendment bylaw 1085.83. Councillor Chadsey, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bylaw 1085.83 is the bylaw dealing with the addition to the zoning bylaw of a permitted use for a building establishment. This is the airport lands. The bylaw is before us tonight for adoption. The process started approximately May the 10th when the signage was installed. We've gone through all of the readings. First reading on May 17th, public hearing on June the 7th, and second and third reading on June the 7th. And on June the 14th, the Ministry of Transportation has signed off on the bylaw. And so the purpose for tonight is to make a motion that the council adopt zoning amendment bylaw 1085.83 2010.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes. Okay. Yep, so that was moved?
Yep.
Thank you, seconded. Discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor? That is done. So we're out of the lots.
No, we're not.
Well, that was
got
the
two more.
subject. Oh, we have two more to sell, yeah. But that's could be heading for subject removal on with this bylaw with this.
That's correct.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mr. Zackel's smiling.
Yes. The next one, procedural bylaw number 1271. Ted, please, or Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Council Procedure Bylaw number 1271, 2010 received first reading on June the 7th, and it was advertised in the Osoyoos Times on June the 9th and 16th, posted on the notice board and website. This bylaw proposes to change procedures for council, add procedures for committee of the whole, public hearings, delegations, public recordings, notice of motion requirements, and will change the regular open meeting times from 7 p.m. to 2 p.m. And I really want to emphasize that last one. I think that's a pretty big change, and to the people of our community to pay attention to that, because I know when we meet all day. At any rate, I won't go on. I would move that council give second and third readings to adopt Council Procedure Bylaw 1271, 2010 as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Rhodes. Discussion, please. This again is a large change, and it has a lot involved in it. Was there any discussion, Councillor Ryan, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I posed a number of questions to our corporate officer, and she very kindly answered them and gave it to everyone, so I think you're familiar with this. I think it's a wonderful bylaw in that it has used the opportunity and the occasion of our proposed change of the time of our regular evening or open meetings, I should say, to really update and to take care of a lot of matters that council has mentioned or noticed, and staff too have observed over the past months. I would like to, however, propose two amendments, and I'd like to, if it's acceptable, I'd like to do them together. I don't think they're too contentious, but I can do them individually if after I say them you think I should. The first is to Section 11, and this is about notice of committee meetings. It's Section 11A, and it says that it reads that there would be a committee established by council would give notice of public notice of the time, place, and date of the meeting by way of a notice in the form of an agenda posted on the town office notice board. And I would like to add after the word "and" there, and to each member of council. So I'd like to add those five words to that, to 11A, to each member of council. And I would also like to add under 11B, it reads, ensure that an agenda package is delivered to each committee member. And I would like to add at that point, and council members upon request. So maybe I should just leave that one and let people. So if there's a seconder, then I'd just like to say a word about that.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Chadsey.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. I say this because we point out here very, very clearly that any committee that we set up, either a select committee or a standing committee, is open to the public and is also, unless it closes, its meeting for legitimate reasons, and also to members of council. Unfortunately, although I like to walk, I don't come up and look at the notice board here very often, and so I would appreciate, especially now that we've become quite electronic, to receive a notice of this, and you know, if something piques my interest, to ask for the agenda package. So that's the reason for doing this, and I think that might apply to other members of council as well.
Comment on that from our corporate?
That would be
Yeah. Well, it just seems like it's almost stated, but then I do understand that recently, was there a little hiccup in the information system on a meeting? Experience?
I think there was a little glitch in circulating some minutes.
Okay.
But as I said, I'm sure that these are being posted, but I just don't check the bulletin board or the
Right,
website
right, right.
regularly, I must admit.
Okay, fair enough. Further discussion on this? Any other discussion?
The point of clarity, are we not mid-motion already on another motion? Is this a friendly amendment? That I'm a little confused.
Okay.
Have a resolution on the floor, bylaw. However, there is an amendment to that resolution on the floor that resolution amended to as amended follows. Amendment. Councillor will now vote with accept those the bylaw back and
They were obviously deemed friendly by council. Friendly.
separate seconders have to
Rose.
I'd like an opportunity to speak to the original one when we deal with amended.
Okay. So first off, we will be dealing with the amendment, and they were both the amendments, 11A, 11B are under the one change. Okay, and we have that moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? The amendments are in place. Now, going back to second and third reading on the newly amended motion, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor Wells. Just one point I'd like to make, speaking in favor of the motion that was put forward, and that's a change of time to 2 p.m. in the afternoon to 7 p.m. As mentioned at our last council meeting, we did have some discussion about this, and I've struggled a little bit with this. It's never my intention to eliminate the possibility of anybody attending any of our meetings, and I was a little concerned, about the time change. So I had directly asked the public in the same forum as we're doing today for input, to be contacted with ideas, opinions, or any comments about this particular thing. 2 full weeks have passed. Have not received one inquiry, one question, or one comment about it. And it's making me feel a lot better about moving the time to the afternoon. There was lots of opportunity. I think we gave out email addresses and all kinds of information about how to contact us about it. I'm really liking the idea now. I have to assume, knowing the dangers of assuming things, that this is a good move for us, and definitely speaking in favor of this motion.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Any further discussion? Councillor Ryan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to say that I don't have any strong feelings about changing it to the afternoon, but I am concerned, and I know that that Ms. Van Vienen did address this in my comments in an email. I'm concerned about when we will fit in our committee of the whole meetings and our in-camera meetings, because at the moment, maybe I'm just accustomed to it, but it seems to work pretty well from my perspective, that we start out and we do those in the morning, and then we sometimes bring something forward. Maybe we ask for more information and we defer it, or we decide that it should be deferred, or whatever. But it gives us some margin of change. And today was a good example where we started at 9 and we finished about 2. And if this were in place, we would be sort of taking a 5-minute break and immediately starting. And I know that that we generally have gone for anywhere from 3 to 5 hours in those morning meetings. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 of them. Sometimes we have at our committee of the whole meeting a a delegate or two delegations. And so I'm just concerned, I don't think we have to put it in the bylaw, but I'm just concerned about how we're going to, and when we are going to have these other meetings that we have traditionally had in advance of our evening meeting.
And I guess I have comments similar to that. Lots of, not lots of days, but there's days here that we've rolled through to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, getting through the information at the either in camera or committee of the whole meetings. So if we had to stop at 2 o'clock and sort of recharge and go into our regular meeting, I don't think we'd be prepared sometimes. And I can see this. Maybe we're going to end up having to have another meeting during the week because they're not going to mesh all that well. So I think, that this could be careful what you wish for, and we could end up not liking this at all. And unfortunately, this is the only way. There is no trial run with local government. Under the community charter, we can't say, well, for 3 months we're gonna try this on a floater and see how it fits. They don't allow us to operate like that. The charter says if you're changing it, you're changing it. So I hope we're doing the right thing here, and I guess we'll know in 3 months and hear from the public and hear from each other. And I see Mr. Maselli shaking his head, so we got one naysayer already.
Order. Point of order.
Have it right.
I did not have a chance. I have still letter on my desk to write opposing. The reason, please, Mr. Mayor and Councillor, our system, parliamentary system, this country of ours runs on a second sober thought. That's why we have a Senate. Now, as you mentioned, early morning, you are debating some of them and so on. There is no chance that you will think what happened because most of people are working and they don't have a chance to come 2 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr.
That's
Maselli.
why-
I'm breaking protocol all over the place by having you speak, so thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to make another amendment, and I'm going to say that I'd like to move that an amendment that we strike out the word 2 p.m. in section 4, and insert the number 7 p.m. I'll speak to that if it's a seconder.
So this would be in section 4. I'm going to take that, roll down there.
That's right at the beginning. Yeah.
Item 4, so there's two 2 p.m.s in
Yes.
item 4.
So wherever it occurs in that, both cases.
7. Do we have a seconder?
Not a seconder, Mr. Mayor, but just want to point out that section 6 would also have to be amended if we amend section 4.
Right.
Right now, section 6 says that the meetings can't
yes.
go longer than.
Right.
So we'd have to say, I guess that would be 9. Is that what it says now?
Proper, have to read.
We haven't done third
We haven't
reading yet,
done
though.
third.
They didn't have to.
Oh,
The unvoted for motion.
Right.
Councillor Chadsey, is that,
Um,
there's no seconder at this point.
yes.
Okay, the first thing that we were taught when we were elected was don't ever let a motion die without a seconder, and so for that reason, I will second it.
Councillor Cronmiller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was really the reason I was holding my hand up, was to second the motion, so it gets on the floor.
Okay.
However, I'll take the opportunity to speak to it if,
Go right ahead, please.
since it's come up. I'm kind of sitting here scratching my head wondering why we're here. It seems to me that we did this, change the time to 2 p.m. and then that sort of started the ball rolling. Do some other things in this procedural bylaw, and so now here we are looking to change it back to 7 o'clock, and I'm going, why didn't we just leave it at 7 o'clock? So I'm scratching my head as to which way. I certainly understand the concerns, and I agree with them to an extent, but on the other side, it's kind of 2 o'clock might work, and it may mean that we have to be more efficient in some of the things that we do if we stay at 2 o'clock, if we use 2 o'clock, because maybe our committee of the whole meetings and things we'll have to do some things a little differently in our procedures to ensure that our day is shorter, not longer. So I'm not sure whether I'm in favor or not at this point. I'll decide, though. Give you some more time.
Thank you, Councillor Cronmiller. Councillor Chadsey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What Councillor Cronmiller says is absolutely true, and we did a lot of discussion. We really wanted to have a trial period, and that wasn't afforded us according to legislation, and this is the only way that we can do it. We talked a lot about why our committee of the whole meetings are so long, and we discovered that the reason they're so long is because we have these few hours between our committee of the whole and our evening council meeting. So why not put extra burden on council and staff and get it onto the agenda as a late item? And so what we found is we were getting all these late items. Staff was just running themselves ragged. We couldn't remember whether or not we had agreed it should go on that council meeting. And for the most part, these were items that could well have waited for a 2-week period. It was just us being workaholics. And so we did talk about that and how with a 2 o'clock meeting, we wouldn't be having these late items. The other thing is, and the most common comment that we receive from the residents is, well, if we have it at 2 o'clock, everybody works and they won't be able to attend the regular council meeting. And please bear in mind that we're not talking about public hearings. So for a year and a half, we've sat here, and last council meeting, we had 2 members attend. That is the very first time in the 18 months that I've sat here that we have had somebody attend a council meeting. We now have 2 tonight. And I think that's wonderful. I would point out that we are an aged community, and I would hazard a guess that the majority of people in this town don't work. I know that a lot of people watch this council meeting in the evenings, and that won't change. They'll still be put on the TV at the same time. And so for all intent and purposes, the people who are watching right now don't actually know whether or not this is live time or whether it's 2 o'clock time. We've taken it this far, and I would like to see us try it. And so I will not support the motion. Thank you.
Mr. Zackel, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to point out to council that if council follows through and adopts this new bylaw, council has the authority to change the bylaw at any future date if the new date does not work. Just have to follow through the normal process of the advertising, readings of the bylaws. So for council discussion, I mean, just by making the change to the time at this point in time doesn't mean that you're stuck with the date.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor Wells. Couple of comments. I know it's redundant. I'd like to go back to my original comment. I feel very comfortable in my ability to engage responses from our community. For myself, it's a primary importance that I hear from residents in the community about these kind of things. We spent a fair amount of time, council, providing contact information, encouragement for people to get in touch with us about this. I repeat myself, nobody called about anything regarding this matter. I don't know the exact numbers at this point in time. I would have liked to be able to give you the exact numbers. There are a profound amount of communities in the province of British Columbia that conduct their meetings during the daytime. I'm sorry, I don't know the number. I'm going to say somewhere around 40 to 45 communities, and that's only my memory, that have always done it during the daytime, and I have to add, successfully during the day. I'm very much in favor of this for a number of reasons that may be important towards this motion. You know, we have the ability to bring staff members into our meetings, and let's not forget about the importance of that. We reduce overtime hours that we pay to our staff substantially, because every time they have to attend a nighttime meeting, it costs us more money. Staff members, particularly directors, will be available to us to attend the meetings, provide pertinent, timely information to this council during the day, and that is not the case during the evening meetings. So I'm very much in favor. At this point, I'm not sure whether I'm speaking in favor of the motion or against the motion, but I think I made my thoughts pretty clear. We've gone this far. I'd like to see us carry on with that change. And I'm going to need some clarity before we call for the vote on it, because I'm not sure where we're at with it right now. I apologize.
We
I
would.
confuse you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Yeah, no, we're, when we vote, it will be on second and third reading moving forward.
Thank you.
Is that,
Regards to
oh, changing to
Yeah.
7
That's
o'clock,
correct.
Yeah.
which puts it back into the evening, slot.
Keeps it the same, yeah.
Keeps it the same. Councillor Cronmiller.
Point of clarification for myself, because I can't tell it happening. We give second and third reading, and so probably next meeting we look at adoption. We can still turn down adoption. We can't. Yeah. Okay.
You'd probably end up rescinding second and third also, because you're going to have to, unless you just defeat the whole motion.
just council's we're only required to advertise. Bylaw, we opted to advertise last week. That's given public to our website.
Okay, and I just had one comment, and the individual wasn't really against the change, but was cautioning that he would hate to see anybody disenfranchised because of this. But he himself could make afternoon meetings. Mr. Zackelby.
One key point to remember too is the public hearings will still be held in the evening. That policy and protocol is not supposed to be changed. Just the regular open at this present time. So the opportunity for the public will always be held at the present time in the
And I guess one other item that should be touched on would be, now that we are web streaming with Granicus, those people can pick that up at the town website, look at it, and it's even indexed. So if you were looking at tonight's meeting and you wanted to look at this item, you just look down at your index and pull up council procedural bylaw, and it would be there for you on your time. You don't have to wait at all. It's there, the information you want. So again, there's a whole another layer there of information being available to the public. And this one is good because it's at their time frame. So I think that's important to have that out there. So if we are moving ahead, we would be voting on the 7 o'clock change, which would be a no change to the council time, but there were other parts of the procedural bylaw that would be passed. So the voting on the amendment, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Or defeated. Sorry, thank you, defeated. So now we're back to second and third reading on procedural bylaw 1271, 2010, heading for adoption probably at our next meeting, unless we have a lot of input out there. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Second and third reading have been given. Moving on to bylaw number 3, off-street public parking regulation number 1274. Councillor Ryan, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bring this bylaw up. It is a bylaw that has a couple of purposes. We have a number of parking lots around town, and there's particularly one at 6901 Main Street. We'll talk about the boat trailer parking area first. At 6901 Main Street, we have a lot for the purpose of parking boat trailers, and this funding comes from the hotel tax. And the purpose of leasing this property was to reduce the burden of parking on roadways within the town by disallowing boat trailer parking on our streets, providing a safe location for tourists to park their boats and trailers during the summer months. There has become an issue recently with residents storing and parking and even displaying for sale vehicles on this property. And they're mostly recreational vehicles. They take up a lot of space, and they really are taking away the space that's needed for overflow parking of boat trailers. So recently, Council agreed that this should be for boat trailers only, which was its original purpose. And we discussed the long-term use of the property by those who may not be tourists but rather residents. And because we don't wish to be in competition with businesses in town that are already providing storage for recreational vehicles and other vehicles, residents who require long-term storage should look at these businesses for a solution, because our hotel tax basically is to provide services for tourists. At the same time, there's been the question regarding the regulations for other public parking lots that are owned by the town. And currently, none of these parking lots which we provide have a time limitation on them. But there has been a concern about one, and that's the one behind the Home Hardware, that has been used to a large extent by workers who are working out of or in offices and stores along Main Street. And this was not the primary purpose for this. It was for those that are shopping, and particularly we've been encouraging our residents to park there if they are physically able to, and leave the Main Street for visitors. So it has been recommended that a 2-hour limit restriction be placed solely on the parking lot behind the Home Hardware, to encourage those who work in town to use the parking lot that is about a block away. So staff, because of the concerns that Council has, have created off-street public parking regulation bylaw number 1274, 2010, to address both the concerns about the boat trailer parking lot as well as this particular parking lot behind the Home Hardware. And we decided to create a new bylaw to expedite matters and to just deal with these issues. So the off-street parking regulation bylaw covers a time-limited parking of 2 hours in this one parking lot, and it allows boat trailers in the boat trailer lot only, and it also restricts parking in handicap stalls and prohibits interference with bylaw enforcement markings, puts a limit of 7 days for a boat trailer to be parked in the boat trailer parking lot unless a permit is received from the chief administrative officer, and that permit can extend that period from 7 days. And we've also had to amend our municipal ticket information system bylaw because some of the fractions in the bylaw 1274 need to be enforced, and there are fines attached to infractions. So I would like to move, Mr. Mayor, that the off-street public parking regulation bylaw number 1274-2010 and municipal ticket information system amendment bylaw number 1214.08-2010 be read for a first, second, and third time.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for Councillor Rhodes? Any further discussion on that? Councillor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wells. Once again, vastly opposed to the last matter we dealt with. I did hear from a fair amount of residents regarding this, particularly about the portion that applies to the boat trailer parking lot. And with all due respect to Councillor Ryan, I know he read through that. I'd like to emphasize a couple of things in that wording, if I could. And the fact is that the thing that you always hear is that I'm a taxpayer in this town, and I'll park in there because it's my dollars that are being used to fund it. That was a very common thing. Heard it about 7 or 8 times from people regarding this matter. Well, the fact of the matter is that is not accurate. I'm not going to say it's not the truth, but it is not accurate. 100% of the funding for that facility, including the fencing that goes around it, the signage, and everything else that goes on in that lot, is in fact funded by the tourists who visit our community. And that is done through our hotel tax. I think that's a very, very important component of this bylaw, in that, you know, it wasn't the intention to allow residents or anybody else to park their RVs. It was there for boat trailer parking. I'm a little dismayed at the fact that we have to go to this length to enforce it with this bylaw and offer opportunities for our bylaw people to penalize infractions and that kind of thing. But I just want to make that perfectly clear to those residents that think it is a public facility. Yes, it is, but it is funded by the tourists. They have to have the priority in there, and restricting it to boat trailer parking really is the right thing to do, that piece of property.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Councillor Cromwell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to sort of speak to the other side of this one. I know from time to time in my time as a councillor that parking on Main Street has come to council meetings. And certainly it's an issue in downtown where merchants and some of our business people, they like to park in front of their store rather than park off site and leave room for their customers. So in this case, we have that issue coming up again with a parking lot in behind on the next street over. And in fact, we have a block up the street, we have a parking lot that's basically sat empty since we've developed it. And surely to goodness, people that work every day full-time, businesses on Main Street and offices don't mind that little exercise to walk that extra block to their office. And we'd really like to see them use our parking lot here and leave the other one for our customers of the businesses of the town. So I just want to encourage people to remember that we do have ample off-street parking, and we'd sure like to encourage them to use it.
Great. Thank you. A comment, I guess, that I would have was, I don't know why they want to cross from, in the vicinity of the post office, Legion wasn't included as 2-hour parking. It's across from Sears there, and it seems to have, I think that would almost be our busiest parking lot in town. It's not restricted. Oh, it's parked there. Well, I guess until it's driven by the business community, driven by the folks downtown, it'll stay the way it is. Mr. Zackleby.
The rationale of why that one wasn't included in the bylaw amendment was number of banks and realtors on that side of the block have multitude of parking spots available for their staff already, and most of those are being fully utilized by their staff. What you're seeing from perspective is that parking lot by post office being used by customers. That was the perception of why it wasn't included this time. It can be changed, definitely, anytime council.
Well, there you go. You get a little bit of rationale that makes it easier to understand right off the bat. Councillor Chadsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the benefit of Mayor Wells and the public, it was discussed whether or not we should include that in the 2-hour. Council seemed to be really reluctant to even put 2 hours on any of the parking. And these kind of restrictions only come when they have to. The reason that we opted not to at this time to do it to the public parking lot across the street from the post office is exactly what Mr. Zackel said, but also the fact that there really is no alternative empty parking lot that these workers could go to. On the south side of Main Street, we have the parking lot that is available, and so we did not feel that the impact on the downtown core workers is that great.
Well, that's a darn good decision. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Under bylaw number bylaws 4, this would be the addition, the agenda addition, late item, zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.82, Lions Park Marina site-specific zoning. The proposed resolution would be that a second public hearing be held for zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.82 on Tuesday, July the 6th, 2010 at 6:30 p.m. at the Sonora Community Center Gymnasium, and further that a special open meeting be scheduled immediately after the public hearing in order for council to consider zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.82. Would somebody put that resolution forward? Councillor Rhodes.
So move.
Councillor Ryan, speaking to the motion. Councillor Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are obligated to have a public hearing because we did receive new information, and we heard from the public in the public information meeting that we held on the 10th of June, I think. So we are going to have another one, and so anyone will have an opportunity again to be heard, and we are scheduling a meeting in the event that council decides that it wishes to make a decision following that.
Okay, thank you. So this will be the public hearing and a special meeting Tuesday, July the 6th, 6:30 p.m. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. We can start advertising the meeting. Is that two occurrences of advertising? Now, you know, because this one was contentious, I'm sure we want to give this all its fair due and length and process here to make sure we get this right. Okay, that brings us into business section of the meeting, council meeting reports. May we do these both together? There's expense reports for Councillor Cronmiller and for Councillor Cronmiller for $600 and Councillor Chadsey for $400. They both attended one of our parent organizations, Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So they were out of town, and that is again $600 for Councillor Cronmiller, $400 for Councillor Chadsey, and I'll need that resolution. Councillor Ryan, Councillor Rhodes, any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, carried. The next business item is a letter request for the use of an unspecified town facility. It's quite lengthy. This letter came from Mr. Oren Tarbox. Submitted a letter requesting the use of a town facility to house transients in Osoyoos. He proposes to open the facility, and there's time frames and charges for breakfast, and there's been discussion with our CAO, Mr. Barry Romanko. We have received similar proposals in the past. We just never know where to put them. There's a reference here to Pastor Phil Johnson, and he was looking at a weather triggering place that we could put transient people when they were coming through. This was actually in a cold weather season. When we started getting into it and got our building inspector down there, you start looking at fire and some of the other issues. We just didn't have a place for these folks to live. At the January 19th, 2009 regular open meeting, the request was brought back to council as business arising. There was a number of the following resolution with quite a few statements in there pertaining to this issue. The motion 30909 moved by Councillor Ryan, second by Councillor Rhodes. Resolved that council encourage Pastor Phil Johnson to seek out interested qualified individuals or groups to assist them with the development of extreme weather emergency shelter. And we never really did come up with a place. Of course, at that time, Pastor Phil was taking over. They were doing the trade between the Elks and the Elks Hall, and I'm not sure whether they ever started housing some temporary folks up there that were in need of short-term accommodation. At the January 18th, 2010 Committee of the Whole meeting, Council received the Town of Osoyoos Affordable Housing Strategy. Strategy prepared by City Spaces addressed emergency shelters and acknowledged that these types of services are typically funded by senior levels of government and managed by non-profit housing providers, the mandate for which falls under BC Housing. So there's quite a bit of information in here. Sections 24 and 26 of the Community Charter require that Council give notice of its intention to provide assistance to an individual organization through the disposition of land. So anything that we came would have to be advertised. And really, at this point, we don't have anything that's suitable that would work. So there's some recommendations here, and until we can actually find a piece of property or the building that would be suitable for this, there's a couple of options, and one would be to forward this letter to the Affordable Housing Task Force to provide advice and assistance to Mr. Tarbox regarding the appropriate authorities and organizations to assist him with his endeavor, or send a letter to Mr. Tarbox advising him to contact BC Housing. So we're looking for a recommendation from Council here on this situation. Councillor Rhodes, please.
I'd like to move that we accept staff recommendation option number 1.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Cronmiller, and some discussion on that. Councillor Ryan.
Yes. When I looked at these, I don't think that our task force exists any longer. I know there was an effort to try to ask those that were a part of it to remain active and perhaps to be to form the core of a nonprofit that might manage the housing units that might result from our development of the Richter property. But I really don't think they're viable any longer. I don't think that task force has any members or has an entity. So I don't think that's a viable alternative, to be perfectly honest.
Staff, do we have?
Yes,
Mr.
Mayor
Tackle,
Wells, if
please.
I can speak to the recommendation at the time when the report was done. That's correct. We found that out after the report was written. And personally, my recommendation would be to go with option 2 for that very reason. Task force isn't in operation at the present time. They are planning to resurrect it, go into the next phase. But this is something that's more of a, at this present time basis, rather than something they may have better luck talking to housing about this.
Councillor Ryan?
Yes, I thought about this, and I have to say that when I got a copy of this, it was circulated to council, and I actually did put in a call to this gentleman. He didn't return my call, unfortunately, but I did say that I was interested, and I was glad that he was offering his services. But I did speak to 2 people in Oliver, one Councillor Newman, and the other Tom Sally, I think the town manager. And I was talking to them about the Covert Farms campground, and so you know, and I got a nice summary from Councillor Newman about how it had happened and how it was continuing. And we had talked to the Minister of Agriculture last September about, you know, needing a parcel of land. So what those things always seem to get away from us. You know, you think you've got so much time, and then suddenly you don't have the time anymore. But I would think that some of the things you said, Mr. Mayor, in introducing this would be appropriate at this time, which is that you know, we've looked at the situation. We don't have either a place or a building that could be used, and it's something that concerns us, but we aren't in a position to do much about it at the moment, and I think that's realistic. But for me, the model is the campground at Covert Farms, and I think we need that piece of land somewhere, and some collaboration with our regional partners to make it happen.
Well, I think to that end, what we really need is we need the champion. We need the champions. We need that nonprofit. You know, in Oliver, it was the farmers and the Rotary Club brought that forward, and really this isn't a place for town to be trying to develop a transient campsite. You know, with our administration and union staff and things like that. It would be pretty hard to show a business plan that made any sense at that, and it unfortunately it comes best through your nonprofits in your Rotary Club or Kiwanis or whatever they are. And I don't mean to slight any nonprofits out there, but that's where this should be driven from. That's the one that makes economic sense. That's the model that's happened in Oliver and other areas, and until we get that, I think we're in a bit of a bind. Mr. Zackel, please.
And with all due respect, the location in Oliver is actually in the rural area, because it's supporting mainly rural workers, rural transient workers. We have the same issue in our areas. The main or majority of workers that come to our community, basically transient workers that work in the regional.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this isn't turning our back on them by any means, but we need help. We need partners is what we need. We need some partnerships here if this thing's gonna make any sense at all. Councillor Rhodes.
Okay, well, for the 3rd time tonight, I'm struggling with the motion. I don't know how effective it would be at this point, finding that there was pertinent information. Is it possible for us to withdraw the motion, or do we still need to do the question? Yeah.
Motion's on the table. We can defeat that motion, but to what end are we going to defeat it? Just walk away from it? Guess we'll decide that one. So we have the motion on the floor. Councillor Cronmiller.
Just before you call the question, I could something, but I'll wait. I commend this fellow for coming up with an idea. He maybe is the champion that we can do something with. So if we send him a letter and thank him for his efforts and say, continue trying, look for something else, go with some, like you say, the nonprofits, the housing, if there's something there, whatever, that he could please continue, because we could make use of sort of thing. But anyway, I'll call the question.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Yes. Councillor Cronmiller.
I'll move that we just send Mr. Tarbuck a letter thanking him for his interest and encouraging him to continue his endeavors and to contact other people in the community that people that would help him.
Okay. Comfortable? All in favor? Or, sorry, I guess I need a seconder on that. Councillor Chadsey, any further discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Paul, start, sir.
Yes, yeah, several of them, yeah. In a row.
Okay, under our reports, looks like it's time to pay some bills. General account in the amount of $460,868.35. For a motion to Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Chadsey, discussion, all in favor, opposed, carried. The arena accounts in the amount of $39,114.91. Councillor Cronmiller, Councillor Ryan, discussion, all in favor, opposed, carried. And motion to receive net payroll accounts in the amount of $60,533.45. Motion to receive, Councillor Ryan, Councillor Rhodes, discussion, all in favor, opposed, carried. Great. We'll move into, there's no CAO's report tonight. Mr. Romanko is on holiday. He's back tomorrow, and we probably will have a full desk waiting for him. So we'll go to Councillor's report, and gee, we have them printed for the first time. I wonder, is this new? Well, we have a rotational order here for the reports.
Where's that?
Well, it's on my agenda.
there we go.
Oh, yeah, you're right, yeah.
Oh.
For the indexing for the Granicus, I have to have an
Okay.
Of course.
Who's first?
Well, today it looks like it would be alphabetical today, so Chadsey, Cronmiller, Rhodes, Ryan. But now we have to rotate that for the next time. So if Ms. Martineau is doing the agenda, she'll have to rotate that for the who's first. Councillor Chadsey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some, I might be a few minutes, and I hope everyone will just bear with me. First of all, I want to talk about the Relay for Life, the 6th annual Relay for Life that took place Saturday, and what a phenomenal success. Just an enormous thanks to all the volunteers who planned the event, to the stage personnel who kept us all hyped up for the 12 hours throughout the night, the Lions Club who served food 8 of the 12 hours, and especially all of the teams. There were 27 teams, approximately 150 walkers, and there was never a time that the track didn't have walkers on it. This was my 6th year, and I'm still in awe of the whole process. So just a huge, big thank you to everyone. The next thing I want to talk about is something that has been on my mind since June the 10th. And I thought long and hard about how I would deal with it. And even up until tonight, I wondered. And then Mr. Marcelli took the microphone, and he talked about some inappropriate behavior. that he felt should not go without being identified. And I applaud him for doing that, for taking a microphone and saying, you know, this took place and it shouldn't have. And so he made the decision for me, and I'm going to talk about the June 10th public information meeting. That meeting was held to discuss the marina, proposed marina, the lagoon next to Lions Park. And it was discussed in conjunction with our waterfront master plan. It was an excellent turnout. I was very much impressed. I think everyone else was too, because the room was a tad small. And the staff of the town made sure that in attendance was the civil engineer, a biologist, and the developer from Watermark, as well as our planning department. They had maps and drawings were available, and they advertised and had a formal presentation at 4:30. That presentation was divided into 4 parts. Director of Planning provided a wonderful history of the area and the waterfront master plan, the reasons behind the proposed marina, and the functions of that proposed marina. The civil engineer explained the details, how the dredging would be done, the planned road networks, the timing of the projects. The biologist introduced the many studies and reports that were required by the various ministries before that marina could ever take place. And the developer talked about his arrangements with the town during construction and his agreement not to place boats or docks or condos or anything along his lands that are adjacent to the lake. And in exchange for that agreement, that we would work together to find an alternate moorage location. For the 65 plus or minus people that were there, I was really impressed with the intelligent questions and the very astute comments that came from them, obviously wanting to learn and to understand the impact of a marina to our community and to our lake. And to each of you who attended to better understand this and to provide those comments, I personally want to thank you. However, there were a few who didn't attend that meeting for any other apparent reason but to disrupt the process. There was inappropriate behavior, in my opinion. It was unacceptable, and I'm talking about it because we learned very young that bad behavior should not be condoned. People were disruptive, they were rude, they were sarcastic, they were in some cases using expletives that were simply that was not the time or the place to do it. And I was embarrassed and I was angry, and I felt that I wanted to stand up and offer an apology to the professionals who sat at that panel, doing their best to respond to questions, to make sure that the information that was given out was accurate and factful. It may not have been what people wanted to hear, but it was the information of record. And so we are now going to have another public hearing. And I just want to set the bar a little bit higher for those very, very few people, that if you do attend the public hearing, I'm going to ask you to please conduct yourself in a more proper manner. And that's my report for the day. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Chadsey. Thank you for taking that step. That's a tough one to take as an elected official. But I think there certainly was a lack of decorum at that meeting, and I had feedback on that also, that people were certainly less than enthralled and less than impressed with what was going on there. So thank you for being brave. Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, I wasn't here for the meeting, and maybe it was fortunately in some ways. However, I was away at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities convention, and I thought I might mention a few things about that convention. I'm not sure what Councillor Chadsey might have reported in the last meeting, so I will add a few things that come to mind, and hopefully I don't repeat anything that he had to say. A couple of notes. The Prime Minister of Canada spoke at this convention for the first time in about 4 years. He had spoke, the last time I saw one is at the first one I went to in Calgary, so yeah, back about 4 years. And one thing of note that came out, I went to a workshop on environmental issues and sustainable development, and they talked about the Green Fund. And as we're all interested in, when we see funds, how difficult it is to get them. And they promised that there'll be more flexibility in the environmental outcomes, that funding for the project will be, there'll be more funding, and it'll be during it rather than at the end, so we don't have to wait for them sometimes, and there's some new forms coming to make it easy to apply for it. So that was something good that came out of that workshop that I was at. One little highlight. Another find where it was. Where my notes come from. You know, I went to a number of different ones, and there was different workshops that are coming for us to attend, and also that the election of table officers, and the president of the FCM this year is from the regional district of Central Kootenay. So that Hans Cunningham is the president this year, and so it's really neat that we have somebody that close to us that we can contact certainly, and that will represent us well, I'm sure. The first vice president is a Barry Urbanovic, Kitchener, Ontario, and so there's representation from across Canada, and whether it's in a rural area or a big city, that certainly we have good representation. So that was another thing that I appreciated. And final thing that I wanted to mention was I took a tour of the Toronto waterfront, and I thought, oh, we'll look at the waterfront after the Osoyoos waterfront master plan. Well, it's kind of different in a big way. Toronto waterfront, they started talking billions of dollars. They started talking about partnerships between the federal government, the provincial government, and the city of Toronto. And I thought, I think we got to look for some federal money to help us do a Osoyoos master plan, because there's funds around for those sorts of things. If they can get it for that big picture, can't we get it for a smaller picture? At least a little bit. There must be some in that pie someplace for us. So you kind of learn from that, and so it was interesting and amazing to see their plans for the waterfront's huge. But the interesting thing to me today was speaking with Councillor Ryan, that his son's involved in the planning and designing of some of the things there at the waterfront. And two of the things that I highlight were these ramps. I guess you'd call them ramps.
Wave decks.
Wave decks.
Call them, yep.
And they're meant to be in like a wave of the lake, and to be fit in with the waterfront idea and the waves coming from the lake. And they're all built out of wood, BC wood, a lot of it, BC cedar. And they also have, and you can walk over them, and they also have metal railings around them. They're all maybe, I don't know, less than a foot off the ground. But these are designed so that the skateboards stay off them. I thought it was a good idea. It allows for people to walk. And they're building this big, huge pathway all the way across the Toronto waterfront. And the other thing then, on this tour, we stopped at a park. And in the park, the central part of the park was a big grassed area. And I thought of Osoyoos again. And there was a grandstand there. Well, not grandstand, a bandstand. You call it more like that. similar to what we see in our waterfront master plan with sails. And this had kind of like sails, but it's a concrete base and steps going up to it in a circular shape, and people sitting there having lunch on the park in the park and enjoying a Sunday afternoon in the sunshine in Toronto. And a band was preparing to play, and I thought, no, this is what we need in Osoyoos in the Gyro Park. So our waterfront master plan fits even in the big city. Shows that we're on the right track, I think. So that was kind of neat. So related with Councillor Ryan as well, that part of it. Yeah, there was a good experience to travel, and certainly you're always looking at things you see along the way that you can apply when you get home. So it's great. And the last thing I have is I see myself on TV here. It works.
Oh.
Well, 30-second delay, but
Okay.
when my agenda was over, I thought I'd see what it was doing, and yeah, we're all on TV.
Great.
On the computer.
Thanks, Councillor Crown Miller. Councillor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also had an opportunity to attend the public information meeting on June 10th at the Sonora Center, and it was definitely attended by a very enthusiastic crowd. I'd like to take this opportunity to encourage everyone to once again visit our town website, have a look at our waterfront master plan. It is available. It might take a little bit of searching on the website, but it'll lay out a lot of the things that we've been discussing in a pretty good format. You know, it's a great plan, full of good information, and it might help some of the people that have a little bit of misunderstanding, and really help you to maybe have a different outlook on what our vision is for that waterfront area down there. Additionally, you know, sometimes as a counselor you get really lucky and you get to attend events in our community, and I was able to attend one that I found very, very inspiring. That was the grade 12 grad that happened a week and a half ago on a Saturday, and you know, to sit there and see the excitement of the students that were graduating, the pride of the parents and you know, grandparents and that type of thing, and the sense of accomplishment from the teachers really made for a great day. It felt so good to be there and be a part of it. I'd like to really offer a compliment to the people that organized it. It's not only the parents and the teachers and the students, it's a collaboration of everybody. Everybody's involved in it. Did a great job with it. It was really a good event. The day went off without a hitch and was really enjoyed by everyone that was there. Myself, I felt an incredible amount of community pride to watch every one of those students receive their diplomas and their certificates for some of the accomplishments that they did throughout their high school years. I was in awe of the number of honor students that graduated this year. I would suggest that there was a very, very high percentage, probably 80% of the graduating class, that received honorable mention about their scholastic and, you know, accomplishments. Just a great feeling. And the other thing that I was really struck with was the students that had planned their lives so well and were able to offer that information for the Master of Ceremonies to present that to everybody. Just really enthusiastic about where they were going and what their futures were, and it felt really good. I've attended about 7 graduation ceremonies, and most of the students, they say things that don't really mean them. They're not really sure about where they're going. This was a real positive set of students that were graduating. And, you know, I would really like to thank Mayor Wells for having another commitment on that day, which allowed me to go. So thank you very much for that opportunity.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Finally, we had a bit of a tragic situation that happened north of us with the mudslide, and I'd like to really pass on a heartfelt thank you to a lot of the people that have been really, really proactive in helping some of the victims of that mudslide. You know, so often we hear about, you know, the victims and what's going on, and it just really takes away from the people that are out there slugging it out, trying to help these people. More often than not, there's no remuneration of any kind for doing it. They devote a lot of hours, and I'd really, really like to thank them for what they've done. You know, and often when lives are reversed, you know, in a moment of anger from Mother Nature, you know, we just really, really forget about those people that are stepping forward and organizing fundraisers and, you know, looking after the people that have lost so much and that kind of thing. And, you know, they're really the people that take a bad situation and make it better and a little more comforting for the people that are victims of things like this. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Great report. And Councillor Ryan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I have to say that my wife was at that ceremony handing out something as well, an award, and she had a very high praise for Councillor Rhodes and his remarks. So, and it was interesting that she said there's $60,000 in awards that were presented, which is a very impressive sum. I've been involved several times in the past this month in our strategic planning at the Okanagan Regional Library, and I'm happy to say that we have chosen a consultant, and we're going to be undertaking this planning for the next 3 to 5 years. And happily, many of the residents of the area will be having an opportunity to participate in some way. We're going to have focus groups. We're going to have a phone survey, and so there will be an opportunity. So if you are approached in some way, why, please cooperate and let us know what your hopes and dreams are for the library. We're getting into a whole new era. I just was seeing today in the weekend paper that our national newspaper, the Globe and Mail, is available on your little electronic reader. You can subscribe and get it wherever you are in the world, I guess. And so, you know, it's just kind of mind-boggling as to how things are moving so quickly in the area of literacy and reading and books. I've done a lot of reflecting on the public information meeting on the marina, and I appreciate Councillor Chadsey's remarks about that. And I've looked at the results of that, the notes and the papers that were left by people afterwards with their thoughts and their feelings about it, and so I appreciated those. People were very reflective, and if they didn't get to speak, they certainly wrote down their thoughts, and I've been studying and reflecting on those. There's a group in town that's working for seniors' independence to help keep seniors in their homes, and they are still drawing up the plans for a grant application and for the services to seniors. It looks like they're focusing on transportation mainly, and also being a resource center for all kinds of other help that people can get, whether it's through volunteers or through individuals who have a little home business of one kind or another. And interestingly enough, there's been a sizable number of seniors who have volunteered to help in some way with helping other seniors. So that's always very encouraging. And so that's been kind of really a pleasant experience to be working with them. The Relay for Life, of course, is always memorable, and particularly the memorial tribute when we have our moment of silence, and all of the little luminaries are lighted around the track, and I just find that's very very good. And cancer came fairly close to home with my sister-in-law being diagnosed, and happily it looks like her surgery was successful, and she's looking to the next stage of her treatment. But so I was happy to be there and to participate and to be a part of that event. So I also had a very happy occasion the other night. I was flipping channels, and sure enough, our community channel, Cable 18, had the Goodman Park dedication on. So if you weren't able to go, please stay tuned on Channel 18. You'll probably see that because I know they do repeat it frequently. And so that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I just have a few things to say tonight, and of course, congratulations on that Relay for Life. That is very, very special for everybody. For I was going to say for so many different reasons, but really for the same reason. Just that involving of people there. There's just when I start off here, I just like to do a correction. I had mentioned the Desert Half Ironman as the first Sunday in July. It is the second Sunday in July. Is July the 11th, and there's volunteers. They're always looking for some volunteers. The ones that sort of come through me, if anyone has a kayak or a paddle board or some sort of boat like that, they can use it for safety in the swimming leg, which is you probably are on about 6:30 in the morning at the Legion Beach. But anyone that wanted to do that, that wanted to do some kayaking, just give me a call and I can get you set up. That brings us into coming into July the 1st. First off, it's not that long away, so we won't be having any council meetings for our July the 1st celebrations this year. But there's a little bit of a hitch in it, and our fireworks maestro, Mr. Frank Zanfleet, the donations are way down this year. He's having severe difficulty in getting his funding, and there was some corporate folks there, and he had about 9 of them, and it was good for about $9,000, and it just hasn't come. And Frank actually sort of believes it's the weather. It's hard to believe that it's going to be July 1st in 10 days, and so he just thinks that it's slow and not coming. But if there's anything you can do or make a donation, please get out there. We would like to have another great fireworks celebration. We're getting to be very, very widely known for that. And if you can get Town Hall here, if you can bring a check or money in, Town Hall, I'm sure Home Hardware, and anyway, you can bring it into Town Hall, and they'll checks or anything like that, they'll collect it for Frank and give it to him. So I just like to again jog everyone's memory that for whatever reason it is a little bit sluggish. And there's another one here. When we were doing our annual general meeting tonight, and our Mr. Zackel in our financial department mentioned that the tax hike was at 1.6%. I just in the Wednesday, June the 16th, Vancouver Sun, there's an article in here about the multiplier for taxes, and I know people that watch this, they're always hearing me talk about the tax multiplier, and the provincial government sort of recommends that 2.4%. So you take your residential, you multiply that by 2.4 times, and that should be your business multiplier. Well, Osoyoos is 1.6, and here we are, the 7th lowest in the province of British Columbia, and the other towns are like Bowen Island and Anmore and Warfield. So the first major town there is Osoyoos, and that's something that we should be proud of, and it shows that we are paying attention to the business community. Vancouver is 6 times the residential tax, and what they're actually doing is they're driving their small businesses out of town. They can't afford to pay their rent with that kind of tax bill on top of it. So I'm proud of that fact, that we have this low business tax multiplier, along with a small increase in taxes this year, and to me, it shows good management. Thanks a lot to our financial department, Mr. Zackel, and keeping this all together and all in line. And I think that's just about enough for me. So a motion to adjourn. Before that, Councillor Chadsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the Relay for Life, Mayor Hampson was there, and he asked if we could just let the public know that they really do need financial contributions for the victims of the slide, and that the CIBC Bank has a trust account set up, and that any money donated, tax receipt is available. So I'm passing that on.
Thanks, Councillor Chadsey. Now a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Cronmiller, Councillor Ryan, all in favor, opposed. We are adjourned. Good evening, folks.